It was a cold evening, and the small restaurant near the city street was quiet. The rain outside made the place look even more lonely. A young waiter who had been working long hours all day was cleaning tables and getting ready to close. His life was not easy. He worked hard, earned little, and still managed to smile at everyone who entered. He believed that kindness cost nothing, and that even small acts could make someone's day better. As he was putting away plates, the door suddenly opened. A little girl, maybe around 10 or 11, stepped inside. Her clothes were old and wet from the rain. Her hair was messy and she looked scared. She stood near the door, shivering, looking at the food that people were eating earlier. The waiter noticed her immediately. She wasn't there to cause trouble. She was just hungry. The restaurant manager had already left and no one else was around. The waiter slowly walked up to the girl and asked gently, "Are you okay? Do you need something?" The girl didn't speak. She just looked down and softly said, "I'm hungry." Those two words broke his heart. He knew the restaurant rules clearly. They weren't allowed to give free food to anyone. But at that moment, he couldn't walk away. He went to the kitchen, checked what was left, and quietly placed a warm plate of rice and soup on a small table near the corner. "You can sit here," he said with a soft smile. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, unsure if she should accept it. "Don't worry, it's okay," he whispered. Slowly she sat down and began to eat. Every bite looked like a blessing to her. The waiter stood back, watching her silently, feeling something warm inside his heart. Outside, the sound of rain grew heavier. He didn't know that this small act of kindness would soon change everything. As the girl finished eating, she whispered, "Thank you, sir. You're very kind." He smiled and said, "Everyone deserves a warm meal." But just then, the sound of a car stopping outside caught his attention. The headlights shone through the glass doors. A black luxury car parked in front of the restaurant. Two police officers stepped out, followed by a tall man wearing an expensive suit. He looked serious, powerful, and cold. The waiter felt nervous. He had no idea what was happening. The billionaire walked in, his eyes scanning the place. The girl froze the moment she saw him. Her spoon dropped from her hand. The waiter looked from one to the other, confused. One of the police officers asked, "Did you see this girl come in here?" The waiter hesitated, glancing at her frightened face. He didn't want to lie, but he didn't want to betray her either. The man in the suit looked at the girl closely, and something in his expression changed. His eyes softened. He took a deep breath and said quietly, "It's really her." The waiter didn't understand what he meant. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking. The man stepped closer, and the police officer stayed back, unsure what was happening. The billionaire's voice broke slightly as he said, "I've been looking for you for years." The girl looked scared but confused. "Me?" she whispered. The waiter stood still, his heart pounding. What was going on? Who was this man, and why was he looking for her? The air inside the restaurant felt heavy. The man's eyes were full of emotion, and the waiter could sense something deep. Maybe guilt, maybe love, maybe pain. In that small, quiet restaurant, something life-changing was about to happen. And the waiter, who had only tried to help a hungry girl, had no idea he had just stepped into a story that would change all their lives forever. The air inside the restaurant grew still. The waiter didn't know what to say. The poor girl looked terrified, and the billionaire's face showed a mixture of shock and sorrow. The two police officers exchanged confused glances, clearly unsure of what to do next. The waiter finally gathered courage and spoke softly, "Sir, is there a problem?" "She's just a hungry girl. She didn't steal anything." The billionaire turned his eyes toward the waiter. His voice was calm but filled with deep emotion. "No, she didn't steal. She's my daughter." Those words hit like thunder. The waiter blinked, not sure if he had heard correctly. He looked at the girl, her small face, her innocent eyes, and then at the man in the expensive suit. There was a strange resemblance between them, but he still couldn't believe it. The girl stepped back, frightened. "No, that can't be true," she said softly. "My parents are gone. I live on the streets." Her voice trembled as tears rolled down her cheeks. The billionaire's eyes grew red. He took a step closer, but she backed away. "Please," she said, "don't take me. I didn't do anything wrong." The waiter moved in front of her, gently raising a hand. "Sir, maybe you should explain." She looked scared. The man nodded slowly. He sat down at a nearby table, his expensive watch glinting under the dim light. For a moment, he looked like a broken man, not a billionaire. "I lost my daughter many years ago," he said quietly. "There was an accident. We were driving home from a family trip. The car went off the road. My wife, she didn't survive. My daughter disappeared in the chaos. The police searched for months, but they never found her. I thought she was gone forever." The waiter listened in silence, his heart heavy. He looked at the girl who stood frozen, her hands shaking. The man's voice cracked as he continued. "I built this business, this fortune, but none of it ever filled the emptiness she left behind. I would give everything to see her again." The girl's eyes softened a little, but she still didn't move. "I don't remember anything like that," she said quietly. "I grew up in an orphanage. Then I ran away because it wasn't safe there. I've been living on the streets for a year now." The billionaire looked at her carefully. "You have a small scar near your right ear," he said softly. "It happened in that accident. You were only 5. The girl slowly touched the side of her head as if checking for the scar. Her eyes widened when she felt it. "How do you know that?" she whispered. Tears streamed down the man's face. "Because I was the one who held you that night," he said, his voice breaking. The restaurant was silent except for the soft sound of rain outside. Even the waiter felt a lump in his throat. The girl didn't know what to do. She looked at the waiter as if seeking guidance. He gave her a small nod, silently telling her to trust her heart. Slowly, she took a step forward. The billionaire opened his arms, trembling. When she finally stepped into his embrace, both of them broke down crying. It was the kind of moment that words couldn't describe, a reunion that felt like a miracle. The police officers looked away, wiping their eyes quietly. The waiter smiled softly, his heart full. He had only wanted to help a hungry child, but now he had witnessed something truly extraordinary. After a few minutes, the billionaire looked at the waiter. "You showed kindness when the world looked away," he said. "You gave food not knowing who she was. You gave love without asking anything in return." He took out a card from his pocket and handed it to him. "If you ever need help, come to me. You'll always have a place in my company, and in my family." The waiter shook his head humbly. "Sir, I didn't do it for reward," he said. "I just couldn't let her go hungry." The billionaire smiled through his tears. "And that's exactly why you deserve one." The night that began with a simple act of kindness had turned into a moment that would be remembered forever. The rain outside had stopped and the clouds had begun to clear. As the lights of the city shimmered on the wet roads, the waiter looked out the window and whispered to himself, "Kindness always finds its way back." He didn't know it yet, but this moment was only the beginning of a new journey for all of them. The next morning, the waiter woke up still thinking about what had happened the night before. Everything felt unreal. The poor girl he had helped was actually the lost daughter of a billionaire. He couldn't get the image of their tearful reunion out of his mind. For the first time in a long while, he felt that his small act of kindness had truly mattered. When he arrived at the restaurant for his morning shift, people were already talking. Some had seen the expensive cars parked outside last night and were curious. The manager looked at him suspiciously, asking, "What happened here yesterday?" "The police and that rich man came. I thought something bad happened." The waiter just smiled softly and said, "Nothing bad. Just something beautiful." The manager frowned, not understanding, and walked away, shaking his head. Later that day, while the waiter was serving customers, a black car stopped outside the restaurant again. The same driver from last night stepped out and handed him a sealed envelope. "It's from Mr. Raymond," he said politely before leaving. The waiter opened it carefully. Inside was a short note written in neat handwriting. "Your kindness changed my life. I want to thank you properly. Please come to my home this evening." Along with the note, there was a small card with an address written on it, a mansion on the other side of the city. The waiter hesitated. He wasn't used to meeting rich people. He was just an ordinary worker. But something inside him told him he should go. When evening came, he cleaned up after his shift, changed into his best, though simple, clothes, and took a bus to the address. The mansion was enormous, surrounded by tall iron gates and a beautiful garden. As he stepped out, security guards greeted him respectfully and guided him inside. The billionaire was waiting in the grand hall, but he didn't look like the serious businessman from the restaurant anymore. His expression was warm and peaceful. Standing beside him was the little girl, now wearing clean clothes, her hair neatly brushed. She looked healthy and happy, and when she saw the waiter, her face lit up with a big smile. "You came," she said, running toward him. He smiled and patted her head. "You look so different. Are you okay?" She nodded cheerfully. "Yes. I have my own room now and new clothes, and I even had breakfast with Dad today." The word Dad made the billionaire's eyes fill with tears again. He looked at the waiter and said, "You gave me back my family. No amount of money could repay that." The waiter tried to speak, but the billionaire interrupted. "Please listen. You gave food to my daughter when no one else cared. You saw her as a human being when the world ignored her. That's something money can't buy. I built an empire, but I forgot what compassion truly meant. Until last night." He then handed the waiter a letter and a set of keys. "This is for you," he said gently. The waiter looked down in surprise. It was the deed to a small apartment near the city center and a job offer in one of the billionaire's hotels, with a higher salary and better benefits. The waiter's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't accept this," he said. "I didn't do it for reward." The billionaire smiled. "I know, that's exactly why you deserve it. You reminded me that true wealth isn't in money but in kindness." The girl tugged on the waiter's sleeve. "You have to say yes," she said innocently. "You're my hero." Her bright smile melted his heart. After a moment he nodded. "All right," he said softly, "but only if I can still visit the restaurant sometimes. It's part of who I am." Everyone laughed and the room filled with warmth. Dinner that evening was filled with laughter, stories, and emotions. The billionaire talked about his late wife and how his daughter had been missing for years. The waiter shared his struggles, how he had grown up poor, lost his parents young, and learned to survive with hard work and honesty. As the night went on, the billionaire looked at the waiter and said, "You know, life has a strange way of connecting people. Sometimes it takes one act of kindness to heal two broken hearts." The waiter smiled quietly, realizing that he hadn't just fed a hungry girl. He had helped heal a broken family. What had started as a small moment of compassion had turned into a story that neither of them would ever forget. When he finally left the mansion that night, the sky was clear and full of stars. He looked up, smiled, and whispered, "Maybe kindness really does come back, when you least expect it." He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of another chapter, one that would test his heart and his faith in ways he never imagined. Days passed, and life began to change for the kind waiter. He had started his new job at one of the billionaire's hotels, not as a simple waiter this time, but as an assistant manager. It was a new world for him, full of responsibilities and respect. Yet despite all the changes, he remained the same humble man who once gave food to a hungry girl. He greeted everyone kindly, helped other staff, and treated guests with the same warmth he always had. One morning, as he was helping an elderly couple find their table, he heard a familiar voice call his name. When he turned around, he saw the billionaire and his daughter walking toward him. They both looked so happy and full of life. The girl ran up to him and hugged him tightly. "Uncle, I missed you," she said with a big smile. He laughed softly and said, "I missed you too, little one. How's school?" She began talking excitedly about her new friends, her favorite teacher, and how she wanted to study hard to help poor children one day, just like he helped her. The billionaire stood nearby, watching them with pride. "You've made quite an impact on her life," he said. "She talks about you all the time." The waiter smiled shyly. "She changed my life too, sir. That night taught me what real humanity means." The billionaire nodded. "And you taught me that kindness still exists in this world. I've started something new because of you." He handed the waiter a small folder. Inside were papers for a foundation called the Light Plate Project. It was an organization that would provide free meals to children and families in need, supported by the billionaire's company. "This foundation was your idea," he said. "You just didn't know it." The waiter's eyes filled with tears as he read the words. "You're doing all this because of one plate of food?" he asked softly. The billionaire smiled warmly. "That one plate fed more than a stomach. It awakened a soul. Sometimes one act of love can start a wave of change." Over the next few weeks, the foundation began to grow. The billionaire made the waiter the project's supervisor, saying he was the best person to understand hunger and compassion. Together, they visited shelters, schools, and small towns, offering food and hope to hundreds of poor children. Wherever they went, the girl was always by their side, handing out meals with a big smile. The waiter's heart sank. The billionaire looked like he couldn't breathe. His fists clenched in anger and pain. "Who was he?" he asked, his voice trembling. The girl shook her head. "I don't remember his name, but I remember his face. He has a scar on his cheek and always wore a black hat." Then, one rainy evening, as the waiter was closing up the small kitchen used by the foundation, something unexpected happened. A little boy, barefoot and shivering, came running in. "Sir," he said, panting, "there's a man outside asking for food. He says he knows you." The waiter frowned, confused. He stepped outside and his heart skipped a beat. There stood a man, older, rough-looking, with a long coat and a visible scar on his cheek. The same description the girl had given. The waiter froze. The man looked weak, tired, and broken, like someone who hadn't eaten properly for days. Their eyes met, and for a moment time stopped. You're the one," the waiter said quietly. The man lowered his head. "Yes," he replied, his voice shaky. "I know what I did was wrong." The waiter's hands trembled, but he stayed calm. "Do you know what you did to that little girl? Do you know how much pain you caused her?" The man's eyes filled with guilt. "I was desperate," he said softly. "I had lost everything, my job, my home, my family. When I found her that night on the road, I thought I could use her to survive. I told myself lies to make it feel right. But when she ran away, I realized how evil I had become. I never stopped thinking about her. I've been living with that guilt every single day." The waiter stared at him silently. Part of him wanted to call the police immediately, but another part saw the broken man standing before him. The same hunger, the same hopelessness he had once seen in that little girl. Years later, the foundation became a national movement. Thousands of restaurants joined in, pledging to give one free meal each day to anyone in need. The Light Plate Project became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even one act of compassion can light up the darkest night. The girl grew up and became a social worker, continuing the mission her father and the waiter had started. She would often tell people, "My life changed because one man refused to ignore me when I was hungry." Never underestimate a simple act of kindness. The waiter, now older and respected, continued to live humbly. He never sought fame or wealth. Every time someone thanked him, he would simply smile and say, "Kindness doesn't belong to one person, it belongs to all of us." And somewhere deep inside, he knew the truth, that the night he chose to help a hungry girl wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny's way of reminding the world that even the smallest good deed can start a chain of miracles. As the story of the kind waiter and the lost girl spread far and wide, it became more than just a tale. It became a message of hope, love, and humanity. Because sometimes a single plate of food can change a life, and a single heart of kindness can change the world.